Well, it looks like we looks like we went a little live earlier than I was expecting you. Let me see. All right, so welcome everybody. Sorry for the little delay there. Things were loading on my side, and we're already broadcasting. So, welcome everybody to Indivisible TX Lege Live. It is February 13th, 2021. Happy Saturday, and I guess happy Valentine's Day Eve, Jason.
Something like that, right? I don't know what the I don't know what we're all working on. Eagerly anticipating. My stockings are hung by the chimney with care.
Well, Valentine's Day is on a Sunday, so I guess that means we'll have a full day of desserts and sweets. At least that's the way we handle it in our home.
I think that's appropriate.
Well, we're here with you on this Saturday. This is something we've been doing every 2 weeks since the Ledge has kicked off and kicked off on January 12th. And it's really just to take some time to look at, see what the stories have been, what's been happening in the Twitter world. Jason Sugg is Indivisible TX Lege Twitter Commander-in-Chief. Always great to be with you, Jason. And you've got some stories lined up for us to kind of dive into so that people understand what's going on and what's impacting the 87th legislative session.
I do. Let me find my screen. Go. So first off, yeah, I mean, it's Valentine's Day almost, and we've got a little indivisible love coming to you. From our hearts to yours, right? Roses are red, violets are blue. We need bold COVID relief and democracy reform too. And I couldn't agree more with this personally. This would win me over if somebody gave it to me.
Yeah, and this is actually very, very relevant for us in Texas because after seeing the House committee assignments for the Texas legislature and Representative Briscoe Cain being assigned to the chair of the elections committee, it is clearly showing that the Republicans in power are coordinating to impact elections and what we feel will be a negative impact for elections as they try to constrict the record vote that was had in 2020 of 11.3 million Texans. And as great as that was to have so many Texans vote, there's still not at least 9.5 million Texans who were eligible to vote that didn't. And 5 million of those Texans were registered to vote that didn't, and the other were eligible to register but didn't register. And so we're celebrating a huge victory in 2020 with 11.3 million Texans voting. But Texas Republicans right now are putting things in place to, unfortunately, see how they can restrict that. So Indivisible National calling for democracy reform at the federal level is something that we hugely hope for as well, because it could help limit some of these Texas leaders who are just interested in staying in power versus having a full function democracy.
Yep, absolutely. Couldn't have said it better myself, Alex. And speaking of this, we've gotten more news this week that the political situation in Texas is going to stay messy over the next year. Here, we had already heard that the census data that gets used to redraw the congressional districts was going to be delayed until midsummer, and now they're saying it's going to be the end of September at least before we see the data that we need. So almost certainly a special session starting in October, and it's a little unclear what the problem with the data is. It seems to be COVID related, and also the Trump administration was unfriendly to the census, and there seems to have been some confusion that is creating delays somehow now. But this is a big deal here, not only because we're being delayed, but because the population of Texas has gone up so much in the last 10 years that we're going to be getting at least 3 extra congressional seats. And so there's a lot at stake here, both for our state and nationally in this. And it seems important to note that, so they're not going to get the data until September 30th, but that's only 70 days before the filing deadline for the 2022 primary election. So everything's going to get super tight here. These primary elections are probably going to have to get delayed some. So this is going to be an ongoing thing for the next year. Not to mention that Texas's maps always get challenged in court because they try and push it to the limit with what they can do in terms of racial discrimination and other forms. And so we can fully expect that, especially with somebody like Briscoe Kane involved, that this is going to get tied up in court and be a mess for a couple of years to come.
Yeah, this is definitely something to keep our eyes on, to continue to try to understand what all these implications, because this one right here is huge. 71 days before the filing deadline for the 2022 primary elections. We just don't, we're not too sure what that implication is going to be. But like you said, it really makes that timeline really, really constrained. Now, for a lot of people, they may feel like, well, I'm going to rerun, or I'm going to run for the seat regardless. And they feel pretty confident on it. But the thing about redrawing maps is you don't know if you're going to be in that district. And some people may feel more secure than others, depending on how they feel about where they're located. But we just don't know how these maps are going to be drawn.
Right.
And so that could be a huge impact on people who are going to run and who are going to represent Texas. And here at Indivisible TX Lege, we want public servants that are in office so that we can solve the problems and continue to push for progress for a brighter and better Texas. And so who's going to be making decisions? What are the ripple effects of this kind of decision? And we've just seen with this census process all the way from 2020, the delays, the fighting over end dates, the process, and then in the midst of a pandemic. And so this is concerning, I think, to see that so early in the process that they're reviewing this, that they're saying, okay, first it was going to be July, now it's going to be September 30th. They're really giving themselves some time, which leads you to think that there may be some really big problems that they got to try to solve.
Yeah. And how fair is this going to come out being for all Texans here? And we had a action on this that is still ongoing through the month of February. There's a number of dates where you can give virtual testimony on redistricting. And if you go and look at our call to action here, we've got all the information that you need to figure out how to sign up for those. This is also on our website. The link is here at the top of the Twitter call to action. And so get in there, let the redistricting committee know your thoughts on this, right? That you want to see things fair. You want to see public servants here and not just districts drawn to make sure that one party stays in power.
Yeah, this is huge. We have 3 more dates available. It's February 19th, February 26th, and February 27th. And we are actually going to be working with partners to really ramp up the attention around public testimony for redistricting, because it is so important. I think on Friday, yesterday, there was a partner who told us around 300 people from Houston had signed up to give testimony yesterday, which are more in line the numbers we want to see. We want to see hundreds of people giving testimony, if not thousands. And some of our partners had shared with us that they weren't seeing in these first few weeks the amount of testimony that they really were hoping and we really need to have. And this is important because while there's leadership in place that may try to pursue the maps and the drawing of the districts in a way that favors, their party, the Republican Party specifically, we've seen this from both parties happen throughout the history of Texas. We want to make sure that there is a fair and balanced approach. And one of the key elements of this is, as you mentioned, Jason, if this goes to court, which every Texas drawing of maps process, redistricting process has, then what's going to be really important for those federal judges is to hear the testimony of what people have provided. so that to make sure that the process was fair, that the process of drawing the maps, didn't become a gerrymandered, chaotic mess. And so having Texans give testimony, this is an action that is important. And anybody who is trying to make Texas better really need to encourage their network, their people, their organizations to participate. And so you're going to see a lot more information from us as we ramp up the attention on this for these last 3 dates and these last 3 opportunities to give testimony.
Yep. Yep.
And really quick, Jason, we just got a comment online from Carmen Vela that's saying, is there a site where I can hear what people say when they give testimony? And Carmen, absolutely. You can go to the Senate website. I'm going to pull this up and reply to your comment with the Senate website. And that's where they have the recordings of the public testimony that's been given. In fact, Jason, if I send you this link, can we throw this on the screen for Carmen so we can show this real quick?
Yep, here we go. This is the site.
So Carmen, if you go to the Special Committee on Redistricting site, you'll see towards the bottom as Jason starts scrolling down, there's a video and audio archive. And these are the sessions of testimony and the committee hearings that have been provided. And so I'm going to put this in our chat so you have this as well as everybody else. But we definitely want to encourage people to check this out. And we're also going to be giving some examples to people through our live sessions over the next week, working with partners so that you get more of that modeling and understanding of what the process is like and how it's available. Go to our call to action website as well, because we have some great links to resources so that you can also use those to be prepared.
Mm-hmm. Yep. Yeah, and if you scroll down in our call to action, we have a guide also from the League of Women Voters on how to give testimony about redistricting if you have questions about it or whatnot. So we're trying to make everything that you need available right here. Pivoting a bit, one of the things that is unusual, I think, about the Texas Lege is that the governor gets to set what are called emergency priorities. And for the first, I can't remember how long it is, the first 60 days or so of the session, the legislature is only allowed to address these types of issues. So one of the issues that Abbott set was bail bond reform. And bail practices in Texas are kind of all over the place. They have a huge impact, of course, on poor communities, people who wound up in jail and don't have $100 to get out or whatever. And in fact, this story from the Tribune begins with a story of a guy who just wound up stuck in jail and got COVID and died because of $100 bail. And then other people get out and the system's a bit of a mess. So, but the legislation that Abbott is proposing, all the criminal justice experts are saying that it isn't real bail reform. It's more about being more persecuting than it is about making sure that people who aren't just stuck in jail because they're poor are protected.
Yeah, and this is where Governor Abbott tries to use language that people that they think they're going to rally behind. But then when you look at the details of what his priority is, it is not aligned, like you said, with the community that is looking for criminal justice reform. And we did a press conference in a coalition with several other Texas organizations on February 6th. You can go to our Facebook page and see that press conference where we had leaders from multiple organizations talk about the criminal justice reforms that are needed and talk about the bail reforms that are needed within that space as a way of seeing where we really need reform, not what Governor Abbott is trying to propose in his language.
Right. Um, and hitting up our good friend, indicted Attorney General Ken Paxton. We had some news from him today. He got really grilled this week in front of the ledge on a whole host of things, including some new lawsuits from his aides who were pushed out and are alleging that he has been taking bribes from a real estate developer, including renovations to his $1 million home. So, and along these lines, the FBI is widening their investigation of him. He is, of course, indicted by the FBI already for other corruption issues, and this is more trouble on his plate. And you have to wonder, or I have to wonder, when Abbott, I mean, how can Abbott watch what's going on and not just say, all right, you need to step back, and really call on him to resign? Like, I mean, can Texas not field an attorney general who isn't under indictment?
Yeah, this is just further proof like this. And this is where like we need to not be cautious in calling it what it is. Attorney General Ken Paxton is corrupt. He is not a leader of the people for Texas. He is not interested in serving Texans. He is interested in serving his own power, his own profile, and for his own gain. And this story is just the latest example of showing that. And we really don't need any more examples because we have so many of
Yep.
Attorney General Ken Paxton doing this. And this is why, in our call for accountability after the attack on the Capitol, we wanted to make sure that Ken Paxton was called out in that, because he was there trying to overturn the election, trying to sow misinformation and distrust in our elections process. You know, having that frivolous lawsuit against other states that the Supreme Court readily rejected. Um, and he continues to do these things that are just embarrassing to Texans. And that's why Representative Chris Turner's call for the legislature to investigate him, and for there to be a thorough investigation that also could lead to impeachment is something we absolutely want all Texans to let their representative and senators know that they need to get behind. Attorney General Ken Paxton needs to be held accountable for the abhorrent things he's doing as Attorney General.
Yeah, he's making us look. I mean, it's not just that he's making us look bad, right? I mean, this is out and out. He's using state resources for his own benefit in a way that is ignoring the needs of actual Texans. This is an important position, and he's kind of treating it as a personal coffer. So he's got to go. Pivoting one more time, of course, we're still in COVID times, and it seems important just to keep in mind what an impact it's had. That, you know, this week we passed 40,000 people dead in Texas from coronavirus, and about half of those have just died in the last 3 months. So it's been accelerating. We're seeing some indications finally that the numbers are starting to move in the right direction. Hospitalizations and infections are decreasing after the holidays, but still, you know, this has been going for a long time. It feels still out of control, and we need more leadership from the state government to really address what's happening here.
Yeah, and last time we talked 2 weeks ago, Jason, we were talking about 35,000.
Right.
And in 2 weeks, it's already increased to 5,000. And we know we talked about this is 2 weeks ago, essentially the size of Texarkana, the city of Texarkana being wiped off the map. And unfortunately, we're moving up that list to where we're now talking, you know, in the top 80. It's within the top 80 of city population within Texas. And so you're looking at a city like Huntsville or Capel or Sherman, where you're starting to get to that 40,000 mark of population. And so this is just devastating to think that cities of this size, you know, are the equivalent of the amount of deaths that we've gotten in Texas due to COVID-19. And we are seeing rapid growth right now. So the importance of vaccine, the importance of that distribution, and the failure of our leaders not doing the things that are necessary to help Texans stay safe and to get past this is another just thing that we see the failure of leadership, like you said, within Texas.
Yeah. And it's so frustrating to have had this like going on for so long, and then to be seeing our state government just scramble to catch up. And I mean, they're making attempts like this got announced this week, this $2.3 million public awareness campaign to increase acceptance. But I mean, they've had almost a year to plan this at this point. Like, we've known a vaccine was coming. Why is this not? Why has this rollout been so poorly run? And I think these are really important questions that I hope the state legislature is going to be asking, because I think Abbott really needs to answer for this. Like, it's his job to protect the public health in this way, and he's just failing. If anything, he's doing more to protect the business and whatever that might be impacted than he is to protect the lives of citizens who are being, killed or like seriously injured by this virus.
Yeah, definitely disappointing to see where his emphasis has been put so far during this. And if we had real public servants, a lot more Texans would be alive today.
Amen. Yep. And along that line, these are the kinds of things that Abbott has been focused on in the midst of the pandemic. He recently announced that he was removing Planned Parenthood Texas off of the list of healthcare providers that can receive Medicaid funds in the state. These Medicaid funds, none of them go to abortion. This is that they're mainly like STI testing and other types of healthcare, and so there's no reason other than to attack the organization itself to do this, and at the expense of the 8,000 Texans who are on Medicaid and utilize Planned Parenthood, right? So this is just a purely political move that he's making in the middle of a pandemic, rather than being focused on getting vaccines out to people. And it's really it's offensive. And so Planned Parenthood, if you go to this tweet, Planned Parenthood has a call to action there with a script and a call thing. We have our own that we'll get to in a moment as well. It's shocking.
Yeah, and we've seen from the reports, and Carmen is still with us on the live. Joy Davis, great to see you as well, commenting there in our live session. But Carmen makes a statement, Abbott does not care for Texans, particularly Black and brown Texans. And the reason this comment from Carmen resonates is because we've seen the communities that have been impacted by COVID. We see the communities that need healthcare in Texas. A lot of these that are impacted are Black and brown communities in Texas. And we need to make sure that we are doing everything we can to serve every Texan. And this is another example of Governor Abbott not interested in doing that. And a pandemic is not swaying him in any way to try to help ensure there's more healthcare access for Texans, purely, like you said, for political reasons.
Yep. He's far more interested in scoring political points with his base than he is in helping people. And it's tragic. And, we're seeing those numbers. I had a tweet that I don't think made it in today, but that really it's striking how much the distribution of vaccines has not gotten to communities of color, and tragic, really, because those are the communities that are being hit the hardest as well. So I wanted to just highlight that, Abbott tried to justify this, saying innocent lives will be saved. Of course, by innocent lives, he means unborn fetuses. But that none of these Medicaid funds go to abortion. This has nothing to do with abortion. This is purely an attack on Planned Parenthood because Abbott doesn't like them as an organization, or they make a good political target.
Yeah. And just how we have Texas leaders that just refuse to be honest and straightforward with Texans is just continues to erode our ability to make progress and move forward, because these leaders are not interested in serving Texans. They're interested in their power. And if that means disinformation and outright falsehoods, then they will continue to lean with those.
That's right. Absolutely. And we have a call to action about this on Twitter, also on our website at this link. And we're asking people to contact both indicted Attorney General Ken Paxton and Governor Abbott. And we have scripts, actually, whether you're pro-choice or pro-life, really it doesn't matter in this case, because it doesn't have anything to do with abortion, right? This is primarily about getting women reproductive health care, whether that's sexually transmitted infection protection, treatment, well woman exams, breast cancer screenings. They do a tremendous number of breast cancer screenings. And so there's like a general health thing here that needs to be addressed, and that they as an organization have stepped into and really done, and now are being persecuted for it.
Yeah, so if you are looking for actions throughout this video, you're going to see key calls to actions, and these are going to continue to ramp up through the ledge session.
Absolutely.
And so whether it's on Facebook, you're following us, or on Twitter, or you visit our website, please make these calls to action happen. Take the time, make those calls, share with others, so more and more Texans are engaging and having their voice heard, and we are able to move the ball on these different areas.
Yep. So we had highlighted a couple of weeks ago some issues about, students being required to take the STAAR test in person this year, even in the midst of a pandemic. And so that's been an ongoing thing. There was a big discussion between Evan Smith at the Texas Tribune this week, and Mike Morath, who's the Texas Education Commissioner. And there was this tweet is the Texas AFT's take on that, and they were really highlighting that. I mean, it's a nonsensical approach, right? That they're pushing the STAAR test for unclear reasons. There seems to be maybe some money involved somehow, but it's not for the reasons that they're saying, right? They're talking about, we need feedback on this, how the students are doing and whatnot. That's not really what the STAAR test is. It's more about school accountability. So we'll get to our call to action on it in a minute.
Yeah, and this is something that people were sharing throughout Texas, because a lot of parents, a lot of educators are concerned about the STAAR testing. Essentially they feel being forced while we're still in the middle of this pandemic right now. And that key takeaway, like you said, from a couple weeks ago that we highlighted, was that the guidance was for students to take the STAAR test in person. And so there's still a lot of Texas students that are remote, that have not gone into school yet. And this would increase the population within the school. This would increase, a lot of things that may not be what we want right now, as COVID is still unfortunately spreading and we don't have the vaccines rolled out. And yeah, definitely the challenge in questioning, like, what is the benefit of the STAAR test right now? School districts and campuses have had to deal with this differently based on how rampant COVID has spread, how much of an impact, how many deaths have happened within their communities, or how their response and what kind of infrastructure and support they've had. And so, we know there's a lot of communities that, maybe have been impacted more, especially the Black and brown community, around, unemployment or jobs and things like that, because of the type of work that may have been paused, or that they're also leading in the frontline workers, so that their students may not have the different levels of support that have been able to be had during this pandemic. And so this is just we're not going to be comparing similar situations. There's too many variables, too many different circumstances that have changed during the pandemic, that what is the real benefit of the STAAR test right now? And a lot of people don't feel like there is one. And I think the Texas AFT's breakdown of this is really insightful, and also the question around, well, there's students that have been remote. Can they, take the test remote, or can they not, show up? And the way Commissioner Morath talked about this is not very comforting for those families and for those students on how they want to handle their safety and everything. And that's one of the big criticisms that Texas AFT provided in their write-up. And we're hearing from a lot of partners, a lot of different organizations, education advocates, that really the waiver should be pursued if there is one from the federal government, and that we should just not have the test this year.
Yeah. Yeah, it's hard to imagine really what purpose having the STAAR test this year really serves. And Representative Gina Hinojosa, who's a Austin area representative, made the very important point that the STAAR test isn't really to diagnose kids at all. Like, it doesn't help. It's not to give a picture of how individual kids are doing. It's more comparing schools for accountability. And so, either Morath doesn't quite understand the purpose of the STAAR test, or which I hope is not the case, or he's being deliberately misleading, which I also hope isn't the case. But it seems like it's got to be one of those two. And we've got a call to action from last week that's still a great one, asking people to get in touch with their representatives about this issue. You can take a look at it there. And let's see if we have more here. Yeah, there's, like I said, there's a script here and information to get in touch with both Mike Morath, Greg Abbott, and your Texas Ledge representative and senator.
Yeah, some of the big takeaways from this call to action in the write-up is educators want these tests canceled, saying that the shift in focus to testing will undermine their work on mitigating the damage that a year of pandemic disruption has caused. Any benefit from state mandated testing comes from comparisons between normal years, schools, and districts, a purpose for which STAAR tests this spring will be useless because of those variables we mentioned. And so this is another opportunity to have your voice heard, to get more Texans involved, to letting them know that the STAAR test should be canceled this year.
Yep. And just to close out, we've got one last Valentine for you. This one spoke to my heart also. Like choose Medicaid expansion. So can't we already? I mean, come on.
Yeah, absolutely. Medicaid expansion is key. And Carmen, you mentioned how your daughter would benefit in the comments here from Medicaid expansion. There are so many Texans. There are billions of dollars not brought into Texas because we have chosen not to expand Medicaid, which a lot of people cannot understand. The uninsured Texans, the number of uninsured Texans has already been talked about by the Texas Comptroller, how this is negatively impacting the economy long term. And we have seen during this pandemic how people need health insurance, and we need to expand access to Medicaid as one of those key ways to give people health insurance access and to be able to have the care that they need. And I think anytime something is going on in the world, looking to The Simpsons for some inspiration to be able to get the messaging across is always great. And I think, Jason, I share with you, it's always great to see people having a good time trying to do good things in the world. And so this tweet is hilarious.
Yeah. Well, that's all we got today for Twitter. Thanks for hanging in there with us.
Well, it's definitely been a very active February up to this point. And we want everyone to understand that these next 2 weeks, the activity is just going to start increasing until we get to March. And once March hits, we're going to hit another gear within the legislative session. And there's still a couple of more gears to go.
Yeah,
and
right.
so our ask for everybody out there is to start getting comfortable with these calls to action,
Yeah.
because we really need people to participate and complete these calls to action, and they are going to increase based on what's happening. And some of these calls to action will have a very small window. The ones we have right now are open, kind of open-ended. Redistricting testimony, we got 3 more dates on that in February till the end of the month. The 27th, I think, being the last date. The STAAR test. STAAR test doesn't happen until later in the spring, so there's time to kind of put pressure on that. But some of these calls to action will have a 24-hour shelf life, a 48-hour shelf life, or it may be like from one evening until the next morning. We just don't know what's going to happen with the legislative session where we're going to need to respond and take action. And so the more we get in the practice of doing them now, while the ledge is fairly mild still, the more we're prepared to take action. And we have, over 29 million Texans in this state. And thankfully, it doesn't take millions to make an impact with the ledge session. It can take a few dozen, it can take a few hundred. If we get into the thousands mark, we are really putting pressure and have the potential to make an impact.
Yeah.
And so if you're out there wanting to make a difference for Texas and wanting to make sure that this legislative session is going to make progress for Texans versus harming Texans, we need your voice. There's no way around this. We need your voice and we need you to participate.
Yeah. And it's such a great point that now's the time to get yourself warmed up, like start to get in practice, find those numbers, get comfortable calling and saying these things and all of that.
Well, Jason, going down the Twitter world with you and seeing the news highlights is always a huge, enjoyable thing to do. And our next plan is to probably be here in another 2 weeks talking about what's happening in the state legislature through what's happening and being posted on Twitter. But we'll also do some reaction items. So if you look at our Facebook page, our YouTube page, we did some reactions on the Governor Abbott's State of the State, and we did a reaction video with Indivisible TX Lege organizers around the House committee assignments. And so be on the lookout for those because sometimes things are going to happen and we want to try to get a reaction so that people can kind of see where our organizers and what our partners are telling us at that point in time. So stay tuned in, keep following us, keep liking and keep sharing, and that'll help us ensure that more Texans are getting in the loop on what's happening.
Great. Happy Valentine's Day, everybody.